So our next talk is actually a conversation between Lisa von Sturmer from Growing City. She's also a Dragon Den tamer. If you look her up on YouTube, you'll find her amazing Dragon Den presentation, if you're familiar with that show. And Amy Chan, who writes for 24 Hours, Vancouver Sun, and the Huffington Post. So we'll set you up here. You might want to use one to avoid feedback. See how you go with two. And if you have issues with feedback.
Maybe we'll stand.
Yeah.
How's it?
Hey.
Good, all right, sounds good. You're so warm.
Yeah.
I feel like you need to see how it goes.
We'll see. We'll try it out.
Yeah.
We'll try it out. Hey guys. Thanks for coming. Yay! Founders Collective. Woo! Lady power, lady power. So I'm excited for you guys to come here today to talk with me and Amy about the new working woman and what does that mean. You know, I think that's something that we were talking about yesterday is a very subjective thing. Like, we all define women and womanhood and femininity in very different ways. But let's start by talking a little bit about what's the old working woman?
So, in my opinion, the old working woman is she's the one that has a job versus a career, and her role in her partnership would be the pillar of strength, the person who does the negotiating, the person who does the compromising in order to support her husband or her partner's career. I definitely think that in her passions and her desire to create a fulfilling career, it takes more of a back seat versus a forefront.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that that's one of the reasons why there's this big switch happening where women are really trying to distance themselves away from being that old working woman who's frazzled and tired, trying to have it all and rushing home after work to make dinner and take care of the kids and cook and clean and all that kind of stuff. And really waiting until the kids are out of the home to pursue her own personal passions. And I think that leads us to what we thought of the new working woman, which was this woman that was really excited to obviously embrace her passions and wasn't willing to settle for putting them off until later.
Yeah, and I totally, further to what you're saying, I really agree. I think we are still not there yet, but we are getting there, and we're having conversations of what works in today's working woman. And I think that this is the woman whose career takes not a backseat, and she has a higher standard or a different standard with her partner where it's based on a balance of compromise, a balance of sharing duties, a balance of how do you divide the work at home with the family.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think that's one of the things that especially Sheryl Sandberg talks about in her book too. In order to become this new working woman that can achieve that working balance between home, career, success, you really need to be looking, I think, are we feeding back? No? Okay. You need to be looking at how is your home base working for you? Do you have somebody that's going to support you in your goals? Yeah. For me personally, I think that's been tremendously important for me in my personal relationship with my own boyfriend. I've had boyfriends in the past that were not accepting of my career goals. They weren't supporting me. It was, I was kind of killing time until we got married and had kids, and their point of view. They didn't realize that for me as a woman, my career is just as fulfilling and just as important to me and my personal well-being than it is for any man. And I think that that's a new dialogue that's really happening. Women are really starting to not feel guilty about saying, I like working, and it means a lot to me to make an impact on the world and to have value beyond just what it is for me to be a mom.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've learned that idea a lot later in life. I come from a very traditional upbringing where my mom was a supporter of my father. My father brought in the income. And my whole life I thought, sure, work hard, but really at the end, you're going to get married, you're going to have children, and then your husband is going to be really responsible for bringing in the primary income, and then you do your job to take care of the home. And, a few years ago, I was in a relationship with a man who was a lot more traditional, and I remember I was leading the marketing team at Kiwi Collection, and I said to my peers, I'm like, I don't want a promotion. I don't want to take on more work. I just want more life balance. I want to be able to travel with him when he's going away for business. And it wasn't until that relationship fell apart that I realized that relying on a man for my financial strategy wasn't much of a strategy at all. And I realized, like, holy crap, like, I just have myself and what I'm doing, and if I meet a partner who can complement that, it's a bonus. It is not the thing you rely on. And that was a really empowering shift for me.
Yeah, and I think that something that you said yesterday that I was so in love with was that Amy, you were saying that all my life I spent so much time and energy focusing on finding a man, keeping a man, making sure that that man's happy, and what's our future going to be like together with that man. And I think I'm guilty of doing it too. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that we were really talking about that I thought was so powerful, was it's very fearless to let go of thinking about those things and just to embrace seeing what happens when you focus on your own personal goals and vision as opposed to just putting everything off for somebody else.
Yeah. I want to share a quote from Sheryl Sandberg's book that I just love. She says, "I truly believe that the single most important career decision that a woman makes is whether she will have a life partner and who that partner is. I don't know of one woman in a leadership position whose life partner is not fully, and I mean fully, supportive of her career." And so I think a shift is also happening right now, and it's great that she has this book and these conversations are starting, is when choosing a partner, it is so important to find someone that is going to be up for being an equal pillar of strength for you, who will be supportive. And I truly believe that, like you said earlier, I've always been the one pining over a man, looking for a man, trying to keep a man. And now I'm at a point in my career where there's so much momentum. And unless I find a partner who can be together an equal force, where together we can have more impact and be more powerful together as a team, I would rather be on my own doing my own thing. There's just too much stuff to do.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. I think that's one of the things that's shifting with women today is there's this focus now on defining our boundaries. What do we accept from people, from men, from friends, from relationships across the board, in work and in our personal lives? What's considered acceptable to us based on our personal values, and how do we react when somebody crosses those boundaries, you know? I think that gives us a certain confidence to say, you know, you're not treating me with respect, or I'm not comfortable in this situation, or I deserve to be paid a little bit more and I'm not afraid to ask for it because I know what I deserve. And I think that that's something that is a shift that's happening, but I do think that in order for us to really continue to move forward, we have to start pushing these conversations more to the forefront and taking words like feminist away from being a dirty word into being a sexy, awesome word that we're proud to say. Yeah. And I think that that's something that has to happen amongst women ourselves, but also when talking with men. Yeah. You know, I think that in order for us to do things like close the wage gap, we really need to be activating these conversations about how equality is something that lifts everybody up. It doesn't take away from men and what's happening there, but it makes the workplace better for everybody.
Yeah. So, Lisa, I'm curious, you know, you are a beautiful, smart, charismatic woman.
Thank you.
And you also are in a male-dominated industry. How has being feminine and being a woman worked for you, worked against you? What are some of the challenges you faced?
Well, for me personally, you know, I think that it's definitely been a bit of a challenge. I wouldn't say that it's been much of an asset necessarily, because I do find that oftentimes I'll be assumed to have more style than substance. Or, you know, I've always found that being friendly, being outgoing, being really feminine, you know, you go in the room and it's not enough to just be in the position and have the job. You're always trying to validate your reason for being there. Your ideas aren't enough just because you're there. You have to constantly be proving the fact that you deserve to be there, that your ideas have merit. And so for me, I found that really frustrating. In fact, in one of my old jobs, I worked in an MMA fight show, which is like UFC fighting. pretty much just hyper masculine as you can get. Not a lot of other women working there. And I ended up getting pulled off a shoot because they said to me, you know what, Lisa, you're the only woman going. It's no place for a lady. And I had been hustling so hard. It was a bit of a promotion for me. And so when my boss took that away from me, he had no shame telling me to my face that that was the reason why I wasn't going, and they were putting a man in my place. Not because I couldn't do the work, not because I hadn't hustled hard for it, but because he thought, you know, as a woman, it wasn't appropriate for me to be interviewing male fighters. Whatever. You know, and I'm an entrepreneur today. Wow, look at that. You know, but that's something that I think for women now is something that we have to embrace. But for me, I couldn't believe it because I thought, you know, it's 2000 and what? Is this something that still happens? Yeah. You know, this glass ceiling, the idea of the glass ceiling, I thought for sure in my lifetime, never. I just assumed that women in the 80s had like smashed through it. I was very naive, now I know better, but you know, I think that's something that why conversations like this and events like this are so important because there is still that divide and we don't see it till we get there. Yeah. And then how do we react about it? So for me, I found it to be quite a challenge, but I know that some women have found it to be an asset to be young and very feminine. How about you, Amy? Tell me about you.
I can recall a time in the beginning of my career, I was a coordinator, and then I moved into a management position where I was managing the marketing campaigns for a lot of franchise partners who were alpha A-type males. And there was an event we went to, and people were drinking and whatnot. And one of the men who I was managing his marketing campaigns slapped my ass. And you know, I told him right there, I'm like, don't you ever do that. I took a stand, and then he did it again. And I remember I was so upset because I was like, am I not dressed appropriately? What have I done to exude a certain energy for someone to be able to treat me that way? And I didn't have the answer. And you know, after being in the working world with in male-dominated industries, I've really learned to be very conscious of the energy that I put out, how I present myself. And now whenever I walk into a room of investment bankers and fund managers, I'm always aware of that energy. And I think further to what you said earlier, it's a mindset of what are the boundaries that you have, what are you willing to take, what are you willing to not take, and what will you take a stand for. And I think when you come in with that confidence and that non-tolerance of someone breaking those boundaries, you exude a certain energy and you demand a certain type of respect.
Definitely. And I think that people expect that you're not going to let them cross the line. Yeah. You know, they're not going to be able to get away with it. For sure, for me, when I was younger, when my boss said that to me to my face, I probably should have put up more of a fight, but I was young. I wasn't sure how the working world worked, you know, and that's something that I have to live on and regret. But I definitely agree with you in that having the confidence to have that boundary prevents you from having to change who you are as a woman. Because for me, I'm not willing to masculinize myself in the workplace. You know, I'm not going to wear a brown potato sack because, you know, I'm trying to hide the fact that I'm a woman. I embrace colors. I embrace being feminine, how I define it. Yeah. And I think that being able to have the confidence to be myself is what makes me a better business person. So I definitely think that the conversation with yourself about having that boundaries and knowing that it's not okay for people to touch you or be inappropriate with you in the workplace is something that's really important.
Yeah. How are we doing for time?
You're doing pretty good. Is there anything else you want to add? Or? Good luck, ladies. You're all doing awesome.
Well, thank you so much. That was so
Thanks, guys.
wonderful. Thank you so much. Great. Thank you very much, Amy, and thank you, Lisa. Fun conversation to have. Great. So our next panel is going to